Okay, here we go. Here we go. Spectate. All right, we're joining a little bit late. If we need to, we will rewatch this on a replay if the full match is that important. All right, we got a heavy miner strat going on over here. Doesn't tell me which player's which. Are you serious? That's so goofy. Why isn't that a thing? You'd think okay, so when you watch replays, you can see which player's which. I can't even see. Okay, Jackos. Okay, so this side's Jackos. Jackos is getting control of the center with his Archidons. Looking like he has got the Frost Arrow effect. Which I think if I hold it, projectiles apply 30% slower. That lasts for 1 second. Okay. In terms of, yeah, it looks like Merry Christmas is pulling out a bunch of miners for this. How many has he got there? It's probably like 9 or so. And the first conflict has started happening. Probably not first. We missed a little bit of the match. We've got the arrows versus the zombies. Or the dead, as you would say. One of them is still going out to attack. So yeah, it looks like... What is this? After cast a spell, dawn a dead at your army's front line. Right, yes. I've seen that power up many times before. It's quite a nasty one. But Merry Christmas responds by getting a Spearton, which could help with this zombie flow. And it looks like Jackos is deciding to retreat a little bit. It is interesting. Oh, Jackos casts a Rage, probably just to get the zombie at the very least. Or the dead. But Merry Christmas decides to not hold on to the center, which is interesting. I think maybe Merry Christmas could have held on to that a little bit longer. Archidons are kind of returning, full-on retreat from Merry Christmas. And the dead is just continuing to attack. Getting shot arrows, or getting launched arrows at. And over here, we also have a pretty strong economy from Jackos going on. Jackos also have the, I forget what this is called, but the center tower spawning power-up. So if Jackos can regain control of this, then they can start launching out a bunch of Speartons, I believe. I think, yeah, they're only on level 1 right now, so 1 Spearton at a time. Jackos returns with 3 Speartons already lined up, and of course, constantly casting those spells just to get the dead walking, an awfully useful power-up. Merry Christmas is focusing on their economy while also keeping their troops hidden, probably so Jackos doesn't know what they are planning. But in the background, Merry Christmas is buying just a bunch of Speartons, loading up on that, as well as Archidons. And one of the Speartons is getting launched right now from the center control, and Jackos doesn't use that as an opportunity to full-on attack, probably waiting to have a little bit of stronger troops. Merry Christmas retreats their miners and uses its many Archidons behind the fortress to attack. To take care of both the Spearton and the dead that was launched over. We got Archidons loading up at the tower and a ton of Speartons ready to fight. Jackos decides to come in by himself. Ooh, but that's not the a pitiful army from Merry Christmas, to say the least. But Merry Christmas is probably retreating those miners a little bit too much. Maybe it's just an impulse reaction to avoid conflict. Merry Christmas throwing out a GG, but I don't necessarily think that Merry Christmas is necessarily in a hopeless position here, but it's definitely looking more in Jackos' favor, especially the longer that Jackos has control of that center point. And it looks like a full-on attack is being led by Jackos, with tons of frost arrows going over, taking out one of the miners, and with this many Speartons attacking the center, it's going to be a little bit difficult for Merry Christmas to return from this. But Merry Christmas goes on full-on attack with many archers, and Jackos actually retreats because I don't think Jackos feels that they can withstand the volley of arrows, and frankly, Jackos probably just feels pretty safe at center, maintaining that control, because Merry Christmas is certainly not in the position to be retaking that. But Merry Christmas has got some deads being sent out, as they also have the dead spell, or the dead spawning at a spell. Arrows are taking care of those, no problem though. It seems that the dawn of spawning the dead is no longer super prominent for Merry Christmas, or super reliable, I should say. But Merry Christmas still has a decent economy going. Could probably use a little bit more cash in the bank in general. But they do have a lot of miners still working at it. And a pretty strong... Oh, and Jackos comes in for another attack. It looks like just those 4 Speartons fighting off many more, but tons of archers in the background to also help. Unfortunately, Jackos also has just a ton of Archidons, and if Merry Christmas doesn't start doing something about those, then they're not really even in the odds. You see, I would almost send out a Spearton specifically to attack those Archidons when Jackos does their next attack. Now, there is a time limit of 15 minutes on this. Admittedly, they started a little bit late, so in terms of when that 15 minutes is up, it'll be a little different than what the bracket will say. But in the case of a timeout, then whoever has the least damage statue will take the victory, just in order to keep the tournaments running smoothly. But Jackos is really playing the long game here with building up their army more, as well as just constantly upgrading this tower. I bet once this tower is fully upgraded, they'll allow for just the maximum attack. And then just with a couple of those Speartons spawning from the tower, as well as Rage in effect, it'll be tough for Merry Christmas to fully defend from that. Ooh, but Merry Christmas decides to launch an attack, which is not something I was expecting. Unfortunately, I think... Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's looking like they're going to have to retreat now. I simply don't think Merry Christmas has enough Speartons to really justify that attack. But and still for a bit, they can't risk any more damage on their tower. And Merry Christmas is still launching a bunch of arrows, keeping it defended relatively well. Yeah, and Jackos ends up retreating past tower. Oh, it looks like that was just a temporary... Oh, Merry Christmas is still launching the attack, which is kind of difficult to say, or difficult to understand why, because I don't think Merry Christmas... Then again, Jackos is still on the retreat there, just fearing that they've lost most of their Speartons, which is interesting to say the least. Reveals the entire battlefield. Interesting. So Merry Christmas has been keeping their eyes on the whole battlefield this whole time, while I assume also been raging periodically. They also have a decent amount of rage, and they're just wearing each other's forces out, but this single attack may have actually brought Merry Christmas back into the runnings a little bit more. I'm going to get a quick estimate on the time of this match. It's looking like at about 10:30, we're going to call the match. Oh, but we had a resign, it looks like, with Merry Christmas resigning the match. Is that what happened? Let me double check the Discord just to make sure.